With over 8 years of experience as a professional guide taking beginner backpackers on their first ever backpacking trip, I get to observe a lot of things. One of the most common things I observe is the anxiety around really understanding what is needed to take on a backpacking trip and what you don't need to be taking. Because very often we end up doing what is called packing your fears. So my goal today is to show you all of the essential gear that you need to pack into your backpack to have a quality, positive, enjoyable, and comfortable experience out in the backcountry. I want to share this as a full and complete guide of all of the gear that you would need to pack, even some additional optional items that might add some luxury or more comfort to your trip that aren't 100% necessary but are helpful in your experience. So this is the ultimate guide and checklist for everything that you need to take with you on a backpacking trip without a bunch of fluff, without also packing your fears and carrying more gear than is necessary when you head out on a trip. Now, before you can get too excited about the selection of all of the gear to take on a backpacking trip, it's important to take a step back and understand how important the full planning process is in having a good experience in the backcountry. Gear is one part of the puzzle and trip planning is the other part, but you can't select the right gear if you don't understand what the trip requires. So it's so critical to take the time ahead of all of the gear selection to know where you're going, how long you're going to be out, what is the season you're going, what is the anticipated weather and conditions that you would be experiencing, and use that to help you choose and select the right gear that makes it possible for you to have a good experience out on your backpacking trip. Now, the first category to talk about is what's known as your big four items. This includes your backpack, your tent, and then your sleeping gear, which is going to be a sleeping bag or a quilt, an insulated sleeping pad, and your pillow. Yes, that is more than 4 items, but that is what the category includes. Now, your backpack is going to be the thing that you obviously need to be able to carry all of the gear items that you choose to take on your trip. Now, I typically suggest a 50 to 70 liter size backpack when you are first getting started, and for you to buy your backpack last so that you ensure that all of the gear that you have selected and purchased fits into the pack that you want to carry. If you buy something that's too small, then you're going to end up overloading it, potentially having more weight than it's able to carry, and just not having a good experience because of that. So buy your backpack last in the 50 to 70 liter range and make sure that it fits your torso length and you measure that correctly, as well as your hip belt size, and just getting a pack that is really comfortable and can carry the weight of all of the gear combined, plus your food and your water. So setting the backpack aside, let's talk about the next item, which is going to be the tent that you choose to take on your trip. Now, tents come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and styles, and there's not really a right or wrong answer for what tent you choose, but what does matter is that it will handle the conditions that you're going to find yourself in, that it is big enough for you and your sleeping gear, because if you are a taller person, you might be using a long, wide sleeping pad, and in that case, you got to make sure that it fits inside of the tent so that you're not super squished and then having issues because of that. I typically recommend for a first-time backpacking tent to get what is known as a fully freestanding tent. What that means is the tent has a full pole structure that goes to all 4 corners of the tent and makes it stand on its own without requiring stakes to be able to pitch the tent. Now, stakes are still important for it not blowing away in the wind and being able to perform in wind and rain, but fully freestanding tents provide a little bit more living space. They don't have as steep of walls, and it's just, I think, an overall great choice for a first-time backpacking tent. What I have here in my hand is a trekking pole tent that requires trekking poles and for it to stake out for you to be able to pitch it. That doesn't mean that this is not a good option. This is fairly lightweight. but it can be a bit of a pain if you have never pitched a tent before to get something like this and then potentially have a bad experience because you didn't pitch the tent correctly. So there are lots of options, a lot of different styles. Just look for the ones that pique your interest and do some research and video watching on YouTube to be able to see how that might function for your specific needs. Now, sleeping gear is going to be the next item, and there are 3 items to talk about. The first is your sleeping pad. What I have here is a No-Loft sleeping pad from Thermarest. It's a very thick and cushy and comfortable sleeping pad to use. But what is important is when you are choosing a sleeping pad, you don't need to get the most expensive item out there. What you do need, though, is one that will insulate you from the cold ground. So when you are looking at a sleeping pad, it's going to have an R value number associated with the pad. Now that R value is going to help you understand how much insulation that pad will provide and protection from the cold ground. What I recommend is finding a pad that has an R value of 4 or higher, meaning that if an R value is 0 or 1, it is much less insulation than if you found a pad that had an R value of 7. So the higher the number, the greater the insulation value. An insulated pad is critical in being able to sleep warm when you're out on your trips. Having that insulation from that cold just coming up to your body while you're sleeping is so critical. And then for your sleeping bag, this can be a full traditional style bag that you would be familiar with seeing, or going with something like I have here, which is a quilt. All this is not having a back panel to the bag, as well as not having the hood that comes up over your head, and it just lightens things up and it's a little bit different sleeping experience. But again, it's still critical to have that insulated sleeping pad. Now, what I recommend in selecting a sleeping bag or quilt is getting one that has a temperature rating of about 20 degrees. This is a nice sweet spot for temperature rating in not being too bulky or too excessive, but also being warm enough for 3-season backpacking, which is going to be the vast majority of the trips that you would be going on. And 3-season is like late spring to early fall months of the year. You may find yourself in freezing conditions, and that 20-degree rating will help you be warm in those situations. Again, paired with an insulated pad, and it's a nice like one and done option for enjoying yourself and getting good nights of sleep. Then additionally, this is an absolute must item for me at this point and should not be considered a luxury item anymore. And this is a pillow. You sleep on a pillow every night at home, so why not bring a pillow on a backpacking trip and maximize the opportunity for getting good sleep? There are a lot of different styles of pillows and options. I like this one. It's from Zenbivy. It's the soft top pillow, but it just provides that additional warmth as well as comfort in getting a really good night of sleep when I'm out on my trip. The next category here is your clothing and layering system, and this works in 2 different parts. What you are wearing on your body and then everything else that you're carrying in your pack that adds warmth and comfort and protection from the wind and rain. Let's talk about what you might wear on your body first. The most important, I feel like, is your shoes or boots, because this is a backpacking situation. You're carrying weight on your back and you are walking. Protecting your feet and maintaining good footwear on trail is super critical, because avoiding blisters and just making it so that your feet don't get totally shredded and ruined while you are out there will make it so you have a good experience. And finding the right pair of shoes or boots that fits your foot size and foot shape is super important. Second to that is a good pair of socks. I always recommend a wool pair of socks or some kind of synthetic, just something that is not cotton. Cotton is a recipe for getting blisters on the trail. So I have a pair of hiking socks, but then I always carry a second pair of socks on the trail for sleeping in, as well as just a backup pair of socks. I'll talk about sleeping stuff a bit more here in a second. Then I've got some kind of base layer that I am wearing on my body. In this case, I have a hooded long sleeve, fully polyester, lightweight base layer. This makes it so that it dries quickly, it's UV protection, and it is just a comfortable experience on trail. Then for my bottoms, I am wearing some underwear, and I'm also carrying an extra pair of underwear. I also might be wearing pants, I might be wearing shorts, whatever is comfortable for you. And that is what I am wearing on my body. Then additionally, the layering system that I am using is going to consist of some kind of mid layer. So I have my base layer, my mid layer, and in this case, this is a lightweight grid fleece hoodie. This hoodie just adds a little bit additional warmth. It's something I could hike in on a colder day if I needed to, and it just provides warmth and comfort without also overheating myself. Then I have my insulation layer. This is my down or synthetic lofty insulation layer that provides warmth. When I am just sitting around camp and I'm not moving, this is critical for me being able to be warm and comfortable while I'm sitting around camp, and even adding additional insulation for sleeping if necessary. Again, it does not have to be down, it can be synthetic filled, whatever works for you and your specific needs. Then I have some kind of waterproof, windproof shell. This is a rain jacket that will provide that weather protection and wind protection when I'm out there, so that I keep myself dry and not getting wet, to avoid hypothermia and just to be more comfortable and safe out on the trail. Then for sleeping, I will also carry a pair of thermal bottoms for me to sleep in, and potentially an additional lightweight shirt if this got super wet or grimy, just nasty, and I want to be a little more comfortable. Then I've got some sleeping gear also. Now, some optional clothing items that would be conditional on where you're going, what the weather is, and what the season would be, might be a lightweight pair of gloves, as well as a beanie. It might be a pair of rain pants or a neck gaiter, or just something else that makes it so that you are protecting yourself and making it possible to be warm and comfortable and safe out there with what you are taking in your backpack. Next category is cooking and food. These are simple items because I personally enjoy simple cooking for the vast majority of my trips. You can take your cooking very, very extravagant if you want, but these are the minimal items that I would recommend for a backpacking trip, where you are essentially boiling water and then putting into a freeze-dried meal, or just doing really simple meals. And the first is having a stove and pot combination. The pot that I recommend is, from a size standpoint, is at least 600 milliliters or bigger, as much as a 1 liter pot. What type of pot and the material that you get and the features of it don't really matter so much as the capacity, and making sure that you have enough volume inside of the pot to do the cooking that you plan to do with the meals that you have planned for your trip. This is the Fire Maple Petrol G3 pot that is a 600 milliliter capacity that has a heat exchanger on the bottom. It makes it so you can boil water very quickly. And then pairing that with a canister stove is what I recommend. There's a lot of different stove options and ideas and things that you could do, but a simple canister stove like this one, this is the Green Peak from Fire Maple. It just works, it's low cost, and it's very simple to use. And then you attach it or connect it to one of these isobutane canisters. This is a 100-gram canister, but you can get larger canisters as well, depending on how much cooking you are going to be doing. But usually a 100-gram is plenty for your cooking. Then I always carry a lighter as well, because even if a stove has a piezo igniter on it, I like to have some redundancy with my cooking and carry a lighter. Then I've got a simple spoon. This is a long handle titanium spoon. This makes it very easy to eat out of freeze-dried meal bags that have that tall height to them, and so you're not getting your hands nasty and all of that. Then you need some kind of food bag. A food bag is important because this is what protects your food from critters getting into it and just making it so that your food doesn't get destroyed while you're out on your trip. A food bag like this is a roll top design that can also be hung, which is very helpful as well. Just make sure that you're not using a food bag that is a like 1 gallon Ziploc or something cheap that is going to rip like a grocery bag. It needs to be something a bit more substantial like this so that your food is protected. Then also make sure that you carry a garbage bag as part of your full cook kit so that you can put all of your trash into it and have those smellables kind of put away and away from critters as much as possible. Now let's talk about water and water filtration and the gear that's associated with that. With water, I always carry 2 1-liter sized bottles. I like having capacity for 2 liters of clean drinking water at any given time. Sometimes when I'm out on trips where water sources are in an abundance, then I might only carry a liter at a time, but at camp I really enjoy having 2 liters of water available to me. And then also having a water container or water storage bag, something that I collect dirty water with that I then run through my water filter. Now the bottles that you choose are not like super important. It just needs to be some kind of vessel that will contain clean water. I like these bottles because they are slim, they are a hard plastic, and they easily fit into the side pockets of my backpack without also being too bulky or too excessively heavy. But smart water bottles or Essentia bottles are also really popular and cheap and easy to use out there. Now back to the water container or water collection bag. This is a 2-liter size bag that is designed for collecting and storing water. This is from Canuck. It's called the Vecto, and it has a big opening on this end. It makes it really easy to scoop my water up and then close this off, and I attach it to my hollow fiber water filter, which is the Sawyer Squeeze. This is my go-to water filter. I absolutely love it, and it is an amazing pairing to put these two together for my water filtration. Filtering your water and making it safe to drink is absolutely critical in your backcountry experience. We cannot rely on mountain streams or things coming out of the rock and just assume that we're not going to get sick by drinking it. It's not a risk that I am willing to take, so I always filter my water. There are other styles of water filters out there. There's pump style filters, there's UV filters, there are other options. This is my go-to for a no-fuss, just really simple, easy way to make sure that I get good, clean water in the backcountry. Now, a couple things that might be optional or to consider is having some redundancy in your water treatment or water filtration. So if this has a failure for some reason, I'm able to treat my water and make it safe to drink, whether that is boiling, whether that is aquatabs or an aquamira. Chemical treatment basically that makes it so I can drink some clean water, or if you're going with a group, ensuring that you have multiple water filters in case one does fail. Now we're getting into a bunch of these small gear items that are still absolutely necessary to have on your trip. Let's first start with a first aid kit. Now, if you're curious what these bags are that I've got, these are bags that I create and sell on my website at backcountryexposure.com. This is the Little Ditty, and this is a medium-sized zipper pouch. But with the first aid kit, you want something that has all of the necessary items to manage what you might be experiencing out on your trip. So I carry everything from blister kit to Band-Aids and things to manage like bleeding and essential first aid items, more than a couple of Band-Aids and some ibuprofen. Please carry a first aid kit so that you can manage first aid situations and everything out on your trips. Then you're gonna need some kind of a poop kit, a way to manage the waste as you are out on a backpacking trip. In this pouch, I have a few different items. I have some hand sanitizer. Keeping your hands clean is so important so that you don't get yourself or others sick from using the bathroom and not having running water to be able to clean your hands properly. And then a trowel. I always carry a trowel because I'm able to dig a cat hole into the ground at least 6 to 8 inches deep, bury my waste into it, and manage my waste appropriately that way. But I might also be required to use what's called a wag bag and carry my waste out on whatever trip that might require. There are areas that do require that. And then lastly, the poop kit has some wipes or toilet paper for me to clean myself appropriately. And then optional items might be using a bidet or other ways to clean your hands, maybe some powdered soap, biodegradable soap, and cleaning your hands away from a water source. That is the poop kit. And then your hygiene kit. In this case, I have toothpaste, toothbrush, and just other simple hygiene items. And then optional items, maybe not optional, necessary items would be medications as well as feminine hygiene products, things that help you manage whatever your needs are out on your trip so that you are as comfortable and enjoying yourself. Now, the last category before we talk about optional items is everything else that's miscellaneous that is still necessary to take on your trip. That is going to start with a headlamp or flashlight, some kind of way to see at night. Anything can happen, and it's just important to have a good way to see when you're out cooking inside of your tent. All of that, a good headlamp and a flashlight or even a lantern, just something that provides some illumination while you're out there is important. Then I always like to carry some kind of pack towel. This is a simple microfiber towel. It makes it so that I can grab a hot pot. If the handles, when I'm cooking, everything get really hot, then I have some way to make it so I don't burn my hands, but also wiping down condensation inside of the tent. It's a really handy thing to have. Maybe it's as simple as a bandana as well. I can use it as a cooling device. Dunk it into some water, wrap it around my neck, and I've got some cooling on really hot days that way as well. Then I always carry a knife. This is part of tent essentials, right? Some kind of blade for me to cut my food and not deal with flies flying around. But being able to use a knife for knife things is important as well. Go away, flies. Get out of here. I also like to have some kind of repair kit, a way for me to manage any kind of holes in my insulation layers, as well as my tent or my sleeping pad. I also will carry a satellite communication device. Now, this one is a little optional. You don't have to have this. It's not 100% required, and it's not as vital as all the other items we talked about, but I love having a satellite device because it allows for me to communicate with my wife at home and to share updates and where I'm at on the trail, and also call for help if I get into that situation. But again, this is not 100% necessary, but I add it into the miscellaneous because I carry one on every single trip. Then some kind of map or navigation device. We already talked about ONX Backcountry, so because I'm carrying my phone anyway, I download maps offline with my ONX app, and then I navigate and use all of that information that way. Now let's talk about optional items, things that just add some more comfort to your trip, as well as they're not 100% necessary. They're just some luxury things. A trekking pole or a set of trekking poles would be an optional item in my mind. These are not required for your trip, but they may be required if you are using a non-freestanding or a trekking pole tent. Trekking poles are helpful with balance as well as going downhill, helping with your knees. A lot of people really enjoy using trekking poles, but they are an optional item. But then some like electronic items that would be optional is maybe a battery bank, some way to charge your phone or your headlamp or other devices. You could argue that this at this point is a necessary item, but I like to have at least a 5,000 milliamp for a weekend trip while I'm out there. Then a couple other items. If I'm in a place where I need to hang my food, then I've got a bear rope to do that. And then lastly, a chair. Chairs are not required or necessary at all, but man, they add so much comfort and enjoyment to a trip, and they're not that heavy, 1 to 2 pounds, depending on what you choose to get, but that is an option for you to take for a little bit of added comfort out on the trail. Now, this might seem like a lot of gear. It might seem a little overwhelming, and I can fully understand and respect that. But when I look at all of these items collectively, this is what makes it possible for me to enjoy myself out on a trip in the backcountry. It makes it possible for me to be protected from wind and rain and cold, to get a good night of sleep, to be able to just be out in the elements and be exposed to that and enjoy myself, because I have all of that stuff that makes it possible for those good nights of sleep, to cook good food, to just be comfortable and enjoy myself. So there you go. That is my full, complete list of all the essential gear items to take on a backpacking trip, the ultimate checklist. Let me know if there are any items that I may have missed or that you would add for your specific needs that you look at as a vital piece of gear that's totally essential. Leave that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching today. I hope that this is helpful for if you are new to backpacking in learning what is necessary and the things that may not be necessary for you to take on your trip, so you're not excessively packing or packing too much stuff and then having a bunch of gear that's just extra bulk and weight that you end up not using on the trail. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. Hope you have an awesome day. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.